Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode, a special episode of Marriage Matters.
Very
this
special.
is a podcast, vodcast, whatever you want to call it, called Marriage Matters. This is the show where we talk about marriage matters because marriage matters. So for those of you who are watching for the very first time or listening for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined by my beautiful wife,
Tanya Coleman. Hey, everybody.
She's the love of my life, the apple of my eye, the cream of my coffee.
Okay.
All those things. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing really
good?
well.
Okay, good. You're looking good. I see you got your little kimono on there. Is that what that's called?
Yes, actually.
Okay, it's a little kimono.
Something like that.
But so this is a special episode, and we just want to just talk to you guys for a little bit because this Tuesday, this is airing on Sunday. So this Tuesday, May 26, 2020, will be 19 years that we've been married. We've been married for 19 years. So we want to just talk about that a little bit and how that's gone for us. The ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the wows and the woes. I just made that up.
You did.
Yeah. So 19 years. 19 years of marriage.
How's it been for you?
It's been good. I can remember more good than bad.
Amen. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take you back. Take it way back.
Okay.
The year was 1996.
Ooh, yes.
I was a freshman at McNeese State University.
Yes.
And I was the organist at Christian Baptist Church under the leadership of the Honorable Dr. Reverend Edward Alexander,
yes.
Shout out to CBC and Pastor Alexander. But I was playing the organ there, and I hadn't been there. I'd been there a couple of weeks, and I've done a couple of rehearsals, a couple of services, and I thought that I had met everybody in the choir. But then a couple of weeks in, I remember looking over in the soprano section.
Shout out to the sopranos.
And there was this young lady standing there with a big smile on her face. And I remember she had on a blue jean shirt with some khaki colored.
He remembers what I was wearing.
Yeah, I remember. Khaki
and that
pants.
I was smiling.
And you even had some, I remember these shoes. You had like some brown
Eastland type shoes.
Yeah.
Whoa! Wow.
I don't remember exactly if they were Eastland, but anyway, it was that type of.
That sounds exactly like something I would wear.
Yeah, and so I remember, and I'm not gonna say that it was love at first sight, and I knew that was my wife, but the reaction that I remember was when I first saw you was, it was like, okay, and I said that because it's like your persona, if I could use that word, or your aura, I don't know, the vibe you were giving off was just something different. And I had never, I'd never seen someone, I don't know, it was just something different. I knew there was something. Was it a good
different?
Yeah, it was a good different. Great. There was something different about you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, now I know what that is, but then I really didn't know what that was. Yeah.
What was it? I'm curious.
It was. I think it was your genuine love for God, because I grew up in church. I've been in church all my little life, and even myself, even though I played music in church, and I sang, and all that, it's like I wasn't living what I was singing when I was playing.
Right.
Thank God that's changed.
Glory.
So I was used to other people my age. We went to church, but church was more like something that we did, and it was just something that we did. And we enjoyed it. We enjoyed music and singing and all that stuff. And I mean, I would say that I had a relationship with God, but it wasn't, it was kind of like, it was a Sunday thing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And I guess I just picked up on it for you. It was like the songs we were singing, it's like they really meant something to you. I could just see that. And so when I saw you, I was like, wow, okay. When I first saw you, I said, "Oh my." No,
I was gonna let you keep going.
that's my dream. Okay, but anyway, I was like, okay, but I didn't approach you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, go up to you and talk or anything at that moment. Um, so, what about you? You remember?
I remember my first memory of you was at a rehearsal. It was a choir rehearsal for the youth choir or junior choir, I think we called it back then. And I was, helping and working with that group. And so I would, sing with them, and I was actually leading. We had started a little stomp team, and so I was
A
kind of
stone.
stomp team. Do y'all remember those? So yeah, so working with that group with the youth pretty closely. And I remember coming into the rehearsal and seeing you on the organ, and I was like, oh, okay, he's new. And then I think after the rehearsal, some of the other young ladies had taken notice, and so they were
It was so
trying to get
sad.
me to ask you your name and all of that stuff, since I was the oldest, more mature one. And I was like, yeah, he's very cute, good looking. But I don't know what y'all flipping out about, just calm down and ask the guy his name. So I had to teach them how to do it, how to approach.
She was using that as an excuse to get at your boy. You heard me? That's what it was.
No, I
She
was not.
trying to- So I remember that. I remember that day
Mm-hmm.
when you came up to the organ to my left side. I remember because that's where the deacons used to sit. I remember they come.
See how the Holy Ghost highlighted me in His Spirit.
And so you came. You asked me my name, I think, and then from there, I remember you were working at Wilson's Leather.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Man, you had a lot of jobs because you worked at Walmart.
Right.
I remember I'll be seeing you in Walmart. Going to Walmart, you'd be up in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you were working at Wilson's Leather.
I never remember seeing you in Walmart. That's funny.
I remember seeing you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing you. I'd be like, oh, that's that girl from church.
Mm-hmm.
And then the funny thing, I think maybe what kind of threw you off was at the time my roommate,
Yes.
and like one of my best friends still to this day, he was how can I say, pretty colorful.
Authentic.
He was pretty colorful and was not known. He was known for many things, but being a child of God was not one of them. I'll just put it that
and
way.
I had a previous encounter with this friend by himself, and he has this personality that he leaves an impressionable mark on you, and so you never forget him.
And it was, what's her name? I can't remember her name. She was like one of your relatives or something. They were best friends.
I don't. Oh.
No, you don't have to say names.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you remember
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. And
Mhm.
I think you had went out with them or something one time. You had told me.
No, I don't remember that.
Okay, well maybe not. Anyway, when she saw me with this guy, I think that kind of threw her off because she was like, "That don't."
Right. It doesn't match.
That don't
this
match.
guy from church, Glenn, is with this person, and like they're hanging out, and it just didn't match. And I was just like, okay.
And so I guess from there, I would talk to you at church, and then for some reason we just kind of really started talking, and we actually like exchanged numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and we would talk on the phone, and then we would talk, and I can't remember from there. I remember our first date.
Mm-hmm.
I took her, but was that after or before the trip to Houston?
What?
The first date.
That was before.
The first date was before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I would have never been going to Houston with you if just blew like.
Okay, so maybe we need to make a timeline. We need to put it all down. But
like,
anyway,
wait.
so I asked her I remember I asked her on a date. And it was Hong Kong,
Hong
Chinese.
Kong.
It was a buffet style restaurant. I thought
You
I was
guys, some
doing
of y'all
something
know what
big.
Hong Kong is if you're from Lake Charles.
So we went out to Hong Kong, and we started talking a little bit further, and then I took her. We went shopping. We went to Houston, and so
it was us and some other friends that went to Houston for the day.
And so at this point, just to talk a little bit about my history, I was very friendly, if I'm gonna just say that, with the ladies.
It's a great word.
And so I thought that this was another one of those, we're not serious, we just kicking it, it's cool to hang out. We talk on the phone, we go out every now and again. And I remember I was at the time had another friend who had came into town, and because again I'm thinking we just kicking it, right? We cool, and so I went into the movies with this friend. And I don't know how you found. I think I told
me like it was very casual.
Yeah, I told this person.
came in. We went to the movies.
We went to the movies, and we just hung out. And I think at that point, that's when I realized that yeah, she's serious.
Yeah, because and I think I was at a point and place in my life where. And just to kind of back up a little bit, like you grew up in the church. Glenn grew up in church. I didn't grow up in church. I didn't have that luxury, that benefit. We went to church from time to time, but I didn't grow up in church. I had seasons or times where I would go often, but it was not consistent. Now I actually had gotten saved at 10, sitting in the backseat of my mom's car because we visited one of my uncle's churches. And my aunt came out to the car and prayed the prayer of salvation with me, but we were not consistently going. So it was kind of like, okay, I experienced it, but there was no learning, no teaching, and then rededicated my life at 16. But again, inconsistency. I've had inconsistency in my life, my whole life, and so I think at that point, and even though I was really young, I'm looking for long-term. I'm looking for, some stability. And so I don't think I knew how to any more. Not to say I had never, but I didn't. At that point in my life, I wanted more. And I thought that we had already kind of connected that, but
not in my mind.
No.
I totally missed that one.
Yeah.
I totally missed that one.
Right.
So I remember we were at her house, at her mom's house, and I went to see her, and we were talking about all this, and she got mad at me. So I was about to leave. I'm like, look, this girl tripping, So I was like, nah, I'm not gonna. So I went back to her bedroom door, and I knocked on her, and she opened the door, and she just stood there and looked at me. And she had
oh God!
She had her paper towel in her hand.
So cheesy.
And she threw the paper towel at me.
So cheesy.
And so
that's all I had.
And I went and hugged her, and so from that point on, I knew, I'm like, okay, she's serious. So fast forward, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. Fast forward, so we're dating now.
Officially dating.
And then I think at some point, again, I kind of got like, okay, this is just too much.
And we were probably, when that happened, I want to say we may have been like a year, 2 years in. Not 2.
No, not 2 years.
Maybe a year
in.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is just too much. So I told her, I gave her the whole speech. It's me, it's not you. I'm not
we were
ready
at McNeese.
In the old ranch at McNeese. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I gave her the whole, whatever. And she's like, okay. Oh, I can't remember what she said. This is what I do remember. Like the next day, she called me. So I'm like, hold up. Didn't she get the talk? Didn't she understand, whatever. So like kind of what was going through your mind?
Well, because it was nothing like definitive. Like, I don't want to be in this relationship. It was more of, I don't know, I have some things going on. It was nothing definite. Like you didn't say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. We need to go our separate ways. It was nothing definite. So I was like, okay, well, maybe he's struggling. I'm just going to try
Oh,
to
I was struggling.
be here for him and be supportive. And so I was like, okay, so what do supportive people do? And I just called.
Okay, I never thought about it. But yeah, I was definitely struggling. I was not looking to be in a committed, quote unquote, committed relationship. I had my own things going on in my family at that time. And I was just not in that mindset. I was still young. And I'm like, there's plenty of fish in the sea, all the, And so that was the first, I would say.
So why did you not come back and say,
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was God. Like, boy, shut up. You know what I'm saying? Just shut up and let the girl love you. And so we got over that and we can, and I remember we had the talk and we kind of patched things up and we moved on. And then I guess about 2 years in, it happened again. And this time it came from Tanya. Not one to, she was like, okay, listen.
I did not have an answer.
Listen. I don't know, she didn't do that. But she was like, okay, where is this relationship going?
Right. I did ask some questions.
And so I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, are we going to get married? And I'm like, ho, wait a minute. Stop the presses. I'm like, married,
Okay, so let me put this on there. Like, okay, so y'all, I am 4.5 years older than Glenn. Okay. I know you can't tell, right?
Oh, okay. Just take the jabs at me. Take the
Not jabs at you. Just, thank
Mhm.
God for good genes,
Yeah.
But so I'm 4.5 years older than him. Not 4.5.
Well, no, about
four, 4 years and 4 days.
Yes,
So our birthdays are so close together. So I was in a little bit, I guess, more mature and ready for more things than he was at the time. And I guess I didn't even consider that, this may not even be in his wheelhouse at all right now, in his life. But I knew what I was ready for, and, there are other fish in the sea, it's just like, if he doesn't want what I want, then maybe I need to move on.
So you was looking for the fish too?
I wasn't looking.
No, I wasn't looking for
But
the
if you
fish
weren't
too.
ready, then it was like I knew what I was ready for.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
I have no idea where this boldness came from, because that was not typically my person. Was not typically my personality at the time. But I knew what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I knew what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And so I just spoke up. It's like, hey, what's happening? What's going on? Where are we going? Is there a point to this? Because I don't want to.
You didn't want to waste your time.
Exactly.
And I guess for me, that just took me for a loop. And I mean, at this point, I knew that I loved her, and I knew that I wanted to be with her. But I don't think. I think I didn't have what it took to start that journey. I mean, at the time, I don't think I had a job. I was still playing at this point, playing at Christian Baptist. I mean, they weren't paying me money, but it wasn't, enough money to start a family on. So there was a lot of things that was unsure. So, I called my pastor. I called Pastor Norman at the time, said, hey, to talk to you, here's what's going on.
Get some wisdom.
Yeah, I had to get some wisdom. Actually, he wasn't he wasn't pastor.
Nope, he was still serving at Christian Baptist, assistant minister and music. Minister of music. I'm gonna get it right.
I called him and I said, "Hey, I need to talk to you," because he was like probably at this time in my life, he was probably. I felt more comfortable going to him than I even did my dad at this time, because there was a lot going on in my family at this time. Anyway. So, and he just, he just let me know. He's like, hey, women, they just want to feel secure. They want to know. And he's like, that she just needs to know, she needs commitment from you. And, and he basically said, if you can't give her that, then, then maybe it's time to, let that relationship go.
And I appreciate that, because that's kind of like what I would, if my dad were in that role in my life, what I would expect for him to have said to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I thought about that, and he even told me, it's like, you got to get engaged, and that doesn't mean you have to get married immediately. And so I was like, okay, I took that advice, and I thought about it, I prayed about it, and here was my thought process was this: I knew I loved her, I knew I didn't want to be with anyone else but her, and I knew eventually that I would marry her. So I made plans to start that process. And somewhere in there, that's when I got the job at UPS. And I went, bought her a ring, and
you got a house. Remember that?
I bought the ring before I bought the house.
Before you got the house, yeah.
Yeah, because I was staying with my dad, actually.
That's right. You sure
when
were.
I bought the ring. Because I remember after I told him, and he was like, "Boy, you sure you want to do that?" But so I bought the ring, and that year, I decided I wanted to do a birthday party for both of us at my mom's house, and so she thought she was coming to
celebrate our birthdays, which are 4 days apart. I think I said that earlier.
And that night, I proposed to her, and we decided we stayed engaged for a year and a half, and got married a year and a half later. So, so in those 19 years, what are some of the things that you've learned in those 19 years that we've been married?
One of the number one things that I've learned is that we are a team, and that no one is going to support us the way we support one another. That I have your back, you have my back. We support one another through the good, bad, and the ugly. And we celebrate one another. And so I think that that's really important for couples to realize that they are a team. And you should never have a bigger supporter or cheerleader than I, and I should never have a bigger supporter or cheerleader than you. So,
okay. Right. And I think for me, and I guess maybe because this is so fresh for me right now, one of the things, that I've learned, and I'm still learning, is how to really share me with you, and not, just assume what your needs are in a marriage. Because I think so many times we go into marriage with these preconceived notions, these preconceived ideas of, what does it mean to make your wife happy, or what do you have to do, and with the typical. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do believe that a man, should provide for his family, but I think in addition to that, I know my wife, she wants me. She wants, and not just, we talk about vulnerability.
Right.
You want me to share with you. You want to know my thoughts. You want to know my feelings. You want to know all those things. And for me, that has been it's been a struggle, to be honest with you, to learn to open up to you that way, because I was not. It's just something that we didn't do growing up, and I don't know if that's because of the way I was raised, quote unquote, to be masculine or to be a man, to be tough. I know my family, we just didn't talk about things.
Right.
We were, and not that we were had a lot of bad things going on, but we just never talked about it. If something happened, it was always hush hush. We didn't talk about it. If somebody felt a certain way, we didn't talk about it. If things happened, we didn't talk about it. So for me to do that has been and still is a struggle for me. But I know that's one of the things that I'm learning is that in order to have true intimacy in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
in order to have true relationship, in order to have authentic communication,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be open and honest
Yeah.
with your spouse. So that's one of the, I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
greatest lessons that I've learned is to, and still learning, is to be open and be honest with your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't assume, because my thing was, I'm not gonna share this with Tanya because she's gonna react this way.
Right.
Well, that's not. I don't know how Tanya's gonna react.
Right.
I can't. I've heard someone say I can't have Tanya. I can't have Tanya's feelings for her.
That's right. Yeah.
So I have to be open and honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll share another thing, then I'll let you go.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is I learned in that is and I've said this before on the shows that I always try to quote unquote keep the peace
Mm-hmm.
in marriage. The other day we were talking in my coaching class, and we were talking about the difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to be a peace keeper.
Mm-hmm.
And what a peacekeeper does is they try to keep, in other words, they don't say what they want to say.
Right.
They don't do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is revolved around walking on eggshells to keep the peace.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But a peacemaker is someone who is willing to work through the necessary things to make
That's
peace.
Good. That's really
and,
good.
and even the Bible says it. Jesus said it.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm learning, and over these 19 years, I've learned to be a peacemaker and not just a peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I found out is that even though I'm quote unquote keeping the peace, there was really no peace in me.
There's turmoil. Yeah, that's good, babe. One of the other things that I've learned is that life happens.
Life definitely happens.
Growing up, I think television became a way of escape from a lot of things for me. And so I would watch shows with families, Family Matters, Family Ties, The Cosby Show, of course, all of these shows, that were about families. And so I had this vision in my head of what it was supposed to look like, from the beginning, and the expectation, I think we probably talked about this before too, was what I built up in my head from these shows or just, different scenarios that I had encountered, that's what it was going to be all the time, and I think what I've learned is that life happens, and so everything does not look like the Cosbys all the time. It never looks like the Cosbys, actually. It looks like the Colemans. But that's not what our life looks like. And there have been some really, really rough times, some really low times, managing financial difficulties, managing some of the other very hard experiences that we've had in life since we've been married together, just different things. And we have learned to overcome those things with one another. I don't remember a time where we have allowed a circumstance to push us in opposite directions. We've always drawn closer together. We've always drawn closer to God and closer to one another in those hard times. And so I've really learned that, we can have this fantasy and in our heads, but it's never going to look like the fantasy. It's going to be your real life, and how you respond to it is up to you as a couple. I can't respond to it one way and Glenn responds to it another way. We have to decide as a couple, going back to the team thing, how we're going to respond to this life situation, to this circumstance, to this family situation, to this whatever situation. We have to learn and talk about and decide, how are we going to respond to this as a team? And so that's one of I think the great things that I've learned, through this is that, it's not a fantasy. It's real life. Real life happens. It's not, the mountaintop all of the time. But man, it's been good.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's been really good, even through all of the things that we've experienced in these 19 years, the losses, the hardships, the, you know, whatever, it's still been good.
Yeah. And I'll say it, you know, I remember more the good than the bad.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'll add this. I've learned that when you do the work,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's easier to go through the bad
Mm-hmm.
times. And when you work on communication, when you work on putting your spouse before yourself, when you
Mm-hmm.
when you do all the things, and that's what you know, we talked about, I think last week, talked
Mm-hmm.
about having a coach, having somebody in your
Right.
life,
Right.
getting to counseling, going to the seminars, doing the work on your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And when trouble comes,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't, it's not about you trying to build up, you know, empathy, or build up
Right.
whatever you have to build up to
Right.
go through that with your spouse.
Right.
You're already there. It's kind of like, you know, we were talking on a call yesterday, the leaders of our church, and I was just thinking, they were talking about you know, going through this COVID thing, and I was thinking that's why it's so important to have a relationship with God, with the
Mm-hmm.
Father,
Mm-hmm.
and build yourself up in Him, build yourself up in His love for you.
Right.
Because when stuff like this happens, it's almost too late. I'm not gonna say it's too late, but it's a lot harder to
Right.
build your confidence in Him going through the storm.
Right.
It's easier
It's
to
like you're
build
going
your
uphill.
right. It's easier to build your confidence
Mm-hmm.
on this side, so that when the
Mm-hmm.
storm comes, it's the
Right.
same thing in marriage.
Right.
When you do the work, when you take the time to talk about, we
Mm-hmm.
talk about the checkpoint thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When you have those checkpoints, and you tell each other, how, you know, how am I doing? How can I improve?
Mm-hmm.
And you make an effort to improve
Right.
yourself before
Mm-hmm.
the storms happen,
Mm-hmm.
because they will happen. Like
Yeah.
Tanya said, things are going to happen.
Yep.
You know, and so that's what Marriage Matters is all about. It's
Right.
about preparing you
Right.
so that when they do happen,
Yes.
you know how to deal with them. You know how to process through them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's good. I was thinking, you know, another thing that I realized or learned, you know, about life, love, marriage, you know, whatever you want to call it, is that it's important to know your purpose in it. Like, why are you married to this person? And even if you are you marrying this person, even if you don't understand or see exactly the full picture, like I knew before we got married, I knew before I met you that God had a plan for my life related to marriage and family, because it has always been a great desire of mine to have the stability, you know, like I talked about, you know, that I saw on television. And so I remember in a dream, God showed me that I was sitting on the back porch of my home in the dream, with my spouse, and there was, it was one child in the particular dream, and was kind of running in a field, and the sun was so bright, there were flowers, and it was like, to me, God was confirming in me that you're going to have your heart's desire, you know. And so I knew that my life was connected to marriage and family, and helping people to have a healthy marriage and family. And so I knew coming into this that was a part of our purpose for being married. I just didn't know what it looked like.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand what your purpose is in getting married, in your marriage. If we understand our purpose in our marriage, then a lot of the things, the life that happens, we will overcome them in a greater measure and quicker, sooner than when we don't understand the purpose, because that's when we start thinking and looking for a way out. But when you know you have purpose, it's like there is no way out, because God has a plan for this, and so we're going to work through this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. All right, so 19 years. I'm
19
looking
years
forward
and
to
counting.
Well, more than 19 more.
Yep.
More than 19. So we're
Absolutely.
looking forward to 50 more.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So hopefully you got something out of that. We just want to kind of share our story with you briefly and allow you to celebrate with us
Yes.
these 19 years of marriage. And we thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
One thing I want to let you know is that Marriage Matters is now on Apple Podcasts and on Google Play. So if you want to add that to subscribe to that on Apple Podcasts or Google Play, please do that.
Yep.
Remember, like us on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
like us on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube page,
channel, yes.
all the YouTube channel. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can find us on Apple Podcasts and on Google Play.
Yes.
So that's all we got for you this week. Hopefully you got something out of that. So this is Glenn and Tanya Coleman letting you know that your marriage matters.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you next week.